For a pretty long while now, both the Volkswagen Group and Volkswagen, the car brand, have been eagerly talking about their collective plans to become world leaders in electric vehicles. And over the past few years, we've seen the Volkswagen Group and its various sub-brands like Porsche, Audi, Seat, Skoda, and of course Volkswagen showcase new electric vehicles and bring models like the Audi e-tron, e-tron Sportback, Porsche Taycan, and many more to market, not forgetting the Volkswagen ID3. And just as deliveries of the ID3 have begun for customers across Europe, the Volkswagen Group and the Volkswagen brand has a brand new vehicle to add to their collective fleet of plug-in vehicles, the Volkswagen ID4, a car that received its official unveiling today. So without any further ado, let's dive straight in and learn what we can about the ID4, its specifications, planned production, and price point. Part of the same ID family of vehicles as the Volkswagen ID3 and built on exactly the same modular MEB platform as ID3, the ID4 is the first all-electric crossover to wear the Volkswagen badge, and unlike the ID3, which is primarily designed for European markets, the ID4 will be a global model that will ultimately be sold around the world and manufactured around the world. Just as early 2011 and 2012 Nissan Leafs rolled off just one production line in Japan and then were shipped around the world to customers before Nissan transitioned to production at 3 different global facilities, so too will initial ID4 inventory come from Volkswagen's Zwickau production facility, where the ID3 is also made. That's before other Volkswagen facilities around the world ramp up to produce ID4s for their respective marketplaces. Volkswagen has already begun the process of readying its Chattanooga, Tennessee facility for ID4 production. It's just not going to be ready in time for initial ID4 launch. Time to look at design. Externally, there's very much a family resemblance to ID3 at the front, with a longer wheelbase than you'd get in an internal combustion engine SUV. This, of course, is made possible because the car is designed on the Volkswagen Group's MEB platform, and there's no need for any bulky engines up front. The lack of engines also means that, like many other EVs, the ID4 has a great turning circle, 33.5 feet in radius. That's larger than smaller cars than the Chevrolet Bolt, but significantly better than the turning circle of the Tesla Model Y, for example. Inside, ID4's interior is again very similar to that found in ID3. There's a traditional flattened-out Volkswagen steering wheel in front of the small, fully digital 5.3-inch driver dash, which Volkswagen is calling the, quote, ID cockpit. And interaction with that is via touch-sensitive controls on the steering wheel. In the middle of the dashboard is the 10-inch infotainment display, which Volkswagen says can be upgraded to a 12-inch display on certain trim levels. It can be controlled via touch, the same Hello ID voice interface system as the ID3, or a gesture-based control system, which effectively translates to waving your hands in front of the display. Frankly, it's all quite minimalistic, something I'm actually a fan of, and doesn't look like it would be a bad place to spend time. Given Volkswagen's interiors have in the past been pretty good in their quality, I hope that ID4 will follow in that tradition without appearing too plasticky or cheap. Like ID3, ID4 will come with Volkswagen's ID Light, which is a light strip behind the windscreen, which will glow different colours to indicate vehicle status, emphasise certain warnings, status lights, and more. Volkswagen also says the ID Light will indicate vehicle state of charge when the vehicle is plugged in and charging. Obviously, as with any global car, specifications and what's included in terms of features and technology will likely vary slightly from market to market, but in the US, 6-way adjustable power seats with power recline will be standard on all models, with higher trim models, the Statement package, adding 12-way power seats with massage and adjustable lumbar support. Mobile phone wireless charging will be included on all vehicles as standard, as well as wireless CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. Like most new cars coming to market, you'll even be able to specify a mobile 4G LTE hotspot, but that will require you to have a data plan for your car, which will cost extra. You also get dual zone climate control, roof rails, heated side mirrors, and heated washer jets for both the front and rear windows. In terms of cabin space, the ID4 is a 5-seater with up to 543 litres or just under 19.2 cubic feet of cargo space with all seats occupied. Fold down the rear seat and that goes up to 1,575 litres or just over 55.6 cubic feet. Because it is a crossover, ID4 has been designed to accommodate roof-mounted luggage solutions via its integrated roof rails. It has a power tailgate as standard and is allowed to tow. In the US, this is listed on Volkswagen's website as being a maximum of £2,200 if you're using a braked trailer. In Europe, the ID4 is type approved to tow up to 750 kilograms unbraked or 1,000 kilograms braked. Which brings me to the all-important final two things: details about the electric drivetrain and how much the car will cost. Since it's based on the same platform as the ID3, I believe ID4 will eventually be offered with a choice of different battery pack sizes, although at this point I think it's fair to note that I don't think all options will be available in all markets. Frankly, it's likely that only the larger battery pack capacities will be offered in the US, but in Europe I wouldn't be surprised to see a smaller capacity for a more affordable price point. In the US for sure, the ID4 will launch with an 82 kilowatt-hour battery pack, 77 kilowatt-hours of which will be usable, and a rear-wheel drivetrain powered by a 201 horsepower, or 150 kilowatt, electric motor. This model is expected by Volkswagen to manage 250 miles on the US EPA test cycle. In Europe, I should remind you that fuel economy tests are different there. Volkswagen is stating 520 kilometres is possible on the WLTP test cycle, with exactly the same battery pack and drivetrain. Volkswagen says a dual-motor, higher performance model with around 300 horsepower, which is 224 kilowatts, will launch sometime next year. It will have all-wheel drive capabilities. As to charging, unlike some models out there, which have different charging capabilities in different markets, it does seem that the ID4 will come with an 11 kilowatt onboard charging unit in both North America and Europe. The only difference between these being 3-phase in Europe and single-phase in North America. DC quick charging on the launch ID4 will be capable of power levels of up to 125 kilowatts at a compatible CCS quick charging station, which is equivalent to ChargeWay Green 6 if you prefer that system, and an 80% charge from 5% empty is said to happen in just under 40 minutes in ideal situations. That might change depending on the battery pack though. In the US, the ID4 will come with 3 years of unlimited complimentary rapid charging on the Electrify America network, and a similar deal is expected to be announced in Europe with the Ionity network. So let's get to pricing. Not all markets have yet received pricing, but in the US, Volkswagen has confirmed that the ID4 Pro, a rear-wheel drive edition of the ID4 that will start shipping in mid-2021, will retail from $39,995 before incentives. The ID4 First Edition, which will essentially be the same as the ID4 Pro, but come with some extra goodies for being first out of the block, will be available at the start of next year nationwide in the US for $43,995, also before incentives. This puts ID4 at a slightly lower price point than Tesla Model Y, as well as being just below the upcoming Ford Mustang Mach-E as well. For a car that can tow, has decent rapid charging capability and free charging for 3 years on a Volkswagen partnered charging network, that's an impressive package at a decent price, even if its sprint time is not all that impressive. Some will, at this point, ask why not a Model Y instead? Well, that's down to pricing, I think. ID4, after incentives, is significantly more affordable than Model Y, and I think it's aimed at a different type of buyer than Model Y is. I think, frankly, both cars can exist in the marketplace side by side quite happily. And lest you believe Volkswagen is kidding on all of this, well, I feel it's important to note that the ID4 is now listed on Volkswagen's website vehicle lineups as being available to build and price in many of the countries where it will go on sale. Not a coming soon, although that is still the case in some markets, but I'd like to put a deposit down and get in line to buy this car. Production is already underway and vehicles are coming off the production line. And with all of the production issues that plagued ID3 now out of the way, and those who already have an ID3 saying how awesome they are, I'm going to admit I'm quite excited. I think the ID4 is going to be a very influential vehicle indeed, especially if Volkswagen hits the 500,000 ID4s per year production goal it's set itself. Sadly, I won't be getting a test of the ID3 anytime soon because it's only available in Europe, and I actually live in the US, and COVID. But I am hoping that we'll get a chance to drive the ID4 when it gets its official launch. And then, of course, I'll share that with you all here. Fingers crossed. As for Kiwi customers, well, the last we heard, Volkswagen was looking at an introduction to the New Zealand market by the end of next year. But when I have something more concrete, including pricing, I will of course share. And that's it for today's video. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.